Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pizzapia. Joining me today is Kyle Yates and Pat Fitzmaurice. And as always, it's you. And today, we're going to begin our way too early, but never too early look ahead at the running back position. That's right. We're going to compare our ranks, see where the disagreements and the debates begin. And I can tell you already from looking at them going into the show today, they are all over the place, which I love because I think that breeds some great conversation. So we're going to break it all down for you. And if you want to go ahead and take a gander at some of these early rankings, I encourage you to head over to FantasyPros.com right now. And of course, you click on that little NFL tab and you'll see Draft Research 2022 Draft Rankings. They're up. And the best part is you can isolate them. So you could just look at Pat Fitzmaurice's because I'm sure those are right if we paid attention to the accuracy competition. He is the most right, probably. But again, if you want to isolate the experts, compare the experts, that's the spot to do it over FantasyPros.com. And Pat, it's good to have you on this one. I'm excited to have you. We had Andrew Erickson join us for the wide receivers show.
I'm kind of excited that we have so many differences in our rankings. Like, this is going to be a contentious show, you guys. I'm excited. I've got my boxing gloves at the ready here.
Yeah.
I've got a roll of nickels ready to go in one in case things get really hairy.
Yeah, a roll of nickels. What are you, in gangs in New York? What are we doing here?
It's nice because if there's this much difference of opinion on the running backs, like, you're going to get values you like, values you feel good about, when every draft room is going to be a little bit different. So, and we're going to see some of those differences today.
All right, so Pat Fitzmaurice is bringing the shillelagh. Yates, you got the hockey jersey on. You're a hockey guy, so you must be ready to fight it out, right?
Let's go. Let's do this, man. I'm coming prepared. Let's have some fun conversation here.
All right. I'm excited now. Boy, oh boy, let's do it. All right, before we even get into it, I want to remind everybody too, we've got a new giveaway right now. A Stefon Diggs autographed helmet can be yours thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. Great place, Pristine Auction. Actually, I just picked up this amazing thing. It's coming here in a couple weeks. This Tom Brady enormous memorabilia piece with all the different pieces from the Super Bowl. It's going to be behind me pretty soon. You're going to see it. It's glorious. But we're giving away free stuff here in that Stefon Diggs helmet. So head over to fantasypros.com/contest and you can go ahead and enter that contest by subscribing to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/fantasypros. And I want to give a shout out to Dustin H from Hawaii who won the Jalen Waddle jersey. Good for you, Dustin H. That may or may not be Dustin Hoffman. I'm not sure. I have not verified that. But if I was Dustin Hoffman, I'd be living in Hawaii. So, Dustin, congratulations. So, you could be the next Dustin. And I'm telling you, the Stefon Diggs helmet is hot. So, go in there. Again, all you got to do is screenshot your subscription to our YouTube channel at Fantasy Pros. And then go to fantasypros.com/contest and fill out that form. And just like that, bang, you are entered to win. Also, it's Super Bowl time, boys and girls. And I know everybody out there is looking for ways to run the squares. And we've got you covered at bettingpros.com/squares. So our sports betting site, as many of you know, is Betting Pros. Bogdan and I do a lot of shows over there. We'll be covering the Super Bowl. We got 2 shows next week. But if you want to get your squares ready for your office, for your house, for your friends, for your frenemies, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you right now, this is the place to do it at bettingpros.com/squares. The squares are going to be automatically assigned, and our scoring will update during the game to show you exactly who's winning in which quarter after which quarter. It's amazing, and it's free. Can you imagine? It's free. So go right now, create a league there, create the squares, and go to bettingpros.com/squares and do that right now. Okay, gentlemen, before we get to our top 24 running back ranking debate/fight, let's talk about this. I want to know the guy who did not crack the top 24 that you really wanted to put into that group. Who's the name, Pat, for you, that you felt so bad about leaving out, and maybe when we have this discussion again in a month or two, might just crack that top 24?
I think this is a guy who made the top 24 for both of you guys, James Conner. I just kind of want to see where the dust settles with him in free agency. You know, Conner and Edmonds, both free agents, both going to be on the move, or not, or maybe it's just one of them, or maybe they do something in the draft. Like, we just don't know what sort of runway he's going to have ahead of him. Like, he got a lot of touchdowns, obviously, and he looked pretty good, showed he could be a versatile 3-down back while Chase Edmonds was hurt. I don't know if he's going to get that sort of opportunity given the injury history, the medical history with him. He's probably going to be back in a committee somewhere, so I'm a little reluctant to put him in the top 24, but he definitely could get there. And honorable mention to Travis Etienne. Big questions about James Robinson's readiness for the 2022 season. It's possible he starts on PUP, which would give Etienne kind of a chance to take off, maybe, and establish himself. But we don't know who the coach is going to be yet. We don't know what things are going to look like in Jacksonville. But Etienne is definitely a guy I'm excited to finally see make his debut.
I'm shocked, Pat, that you don't have a lot of faith in the potential Doug Peterson backfield. I don't know where that could be coming from. I really don't. Yates, how about for you? Who's that guy that just missed the cut here for you that you want to highlight today?
What a season where we are at the end of it, and I'm saying it's crazy that I'm leaving Cordarrelle Patterson outside of my top 24 running backs for next year, but I mean, he's right there at 25 in my rankings, and a large part of this is because of the performance over the latter half of the season, right? The first half, he was just dominant. He was on a tear. Like, it was just ridiculous, the production that he was putting up, and then as you look at from weeks 15 on, I mean, he was the wide receiver, running back, however you want to classify it, 57, 33, 38, 69. Like, the production just was not there for Cordarrelle Patterson. So moving forward into next year, does Atlanta, one, re-sign Cordarrelle Patterson? Two, do they bring in another running back to complement outside of Mike Davis or, whatever? So there's a ton of question marks with Cordarrelle Patterson. So next year, I think a lot of people are going to go back to that well. They might be saying, I'm willing to dive right back in with CP because of what he did. But I'm just saying, I just don't know if I have that confidence yet to be able to put him inside my top 24, but he's certainly right there on the edge.
I can understand that. In fact, Pat and I also have left him outside of our top 24. He's actually outside of my top 30. Not a fan. I just don't believe, in what I saw those first 8 weeks carrying over into 2022. I just can't do it. For me, that guy is Michael Carter and J.K. Dobbins. Both those guys are right there. I just want to see a little bit more, and it's really not even, a knock on these guys necessarily. It's just I'm very confident right now, at least how I feel about the guys ahead of them that I've ranked. But I do believe that as I get closer, and probably in August too, when I start seeing Michael Carter or J.K. Dobbins out there on the field, those guys could move up. But Carter's that one that I really struggled with right now. I wanted to put in the top 24, but I just couldn't. But let's get instead to the countdown. Let's start at 24 with Pat Fitzmaurice, who's got A.J. Dillon at 24, then Miles Sanders at 23, Rashad Penny at 22, Josh Jacobs at 21, Ezekiel Elliott at 20, and Aaron Jones at 19. So you got both Packers guys between 19 and 24, which I love. You've got the Enigma, Miles Sanders, and Ezekiel Elliott dropped all the way to 20. So let's start there, because I think that's the one for me. I thought I was going to be harsh on Ezekiel Elliott. Then I saw Pat's rankings, and I went, oodalali, this is very good. Pat, talk to me about Ezekiel Elliott. Why has he dropped all the way to 20 for you going into next season?
Yeah, I gave into peer pressure on Ezekiel Elliott this year. Like, I had him, I think, maybe on the outskirts of my top 10 in the offseason. And then a lot of really smart people were high on Ezekiel Elliott and a bounce back season. He looked kind of bad. I thought at the end of 2020, he looked like their second best running back. And for most of 2021, I felt like he looked like their second best running back. And this is a guy who's had a lot of carries, had a lot of catches, has taken a lot of punishments, starting to get a little older in his NFL career. And we know the sun does not shine on running backs for very long in this league a lot of the time. I'm just not betting on a bounce back when a lot of people were betting on one this year and didn't really get it. I mean, it wasn't a terrible season. He scored touchdowns, the yards per carry didn't completely great or anything, but it was just not the old Zeke that we're used to seeing. I don't think that Zeke is coming back. Once the cheese starts to go bad, it doesn't get fresh again. So, yeah, hat to my buddy Scott Pianowski. That's his saying. So I don't want to be accused of stealing his catchphrase.
Cheese.
But
no, I understand. I completely understand.
So that's kind of it. I'm just sort of out on Zeke, and I don't know. Maybe we do get the bounce back in 2022, but I'm not going to be the guy staking an early round pick on it.
Well, you don't have to convince me. I'm going to ask you this question because you know how I felt about Zeke going into this year. I was terrified. I understand people will look at the board and see, well, he finished as an RB1, and they'll maybe have a false sense of confidence coming off of that. So my question to you is this. if the running back group of Derrick Henry, CMC, Dalvin Cook, if everybody stayed healthy, Nick Chubb, and played their full amount of games, where do you think Zeke would have really finished, in your opinion, in terms of rankings in 2021 at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's it. We're looking at the survivor bias because Zeke did manage to, and to his credit, he toughed it out, was physically not right for much of the season. I don't think he would have finished top 12. I think he would have been probably in high-end RB2 range.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think it would have been like 13, 14, probably somewhere in there. Let's ask you one more, Pat, before we go to Yates' next group here. AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. If for some reason the Packers just blow it up, right, and maybe Aaron Jones, they decide to move on from him in some capacity and figure that out. If AJ Dillon got the backfield to himself, what do you think that would do for you personally in terms of his rank?
Oh, man, we would have to move him way up, wouldn't we? And as it was, like for the last 11 or 12 games of the season, Dillon out-carried, out-touched, had more touchdowns. I think it was like a 7-4 touchdown edge over their last 11 or 12 games. Yeah, we would have to go way up with him. And it's definitely interesting. These rankings are sort of based on the premise that Aaron Rodgers would be back, right? So if Aaron Rodgers leaves, yeah, these rankings are going to be shuffled considerably.
Oh, you mean this isn't the last time we're going to rank guys and talk about it? I thought this was it for the whole year. All right, Yates, let's talk about your guys here, and let's start with Josh Jacobs at 24, James Conner, then Michael Carter, Elijah Mitchell, J.K. Dobbins, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, you've got James Conner in this top 24 group. That's terrific. You've also got Michael Carter and Eli Mitchell. I want to talk to you about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, though, because you've got him all the way up at 19. So what is it that you're confident in when it comes to Helaire? Because I think we've gotten more disappointment than we have necessarily gotten productivity out of Helaire. So what's going to change for you in this season that you want to be this bullish on him this early?
Yeah, with CEH, the ranking of him here is also kind of just taking into account that Darrell Williams is a free agent. And if Darrell Williams does move on, which I think that he's priced his way out of Kansas City to potentially be a starter somewhere else or a key rotational piece. So if that is the case, then I think that CEH still in this offense is worthy of being a top 20 running back. Now, is that like one of the guys that we're ranking here because there's some question marks, but then he has the potential to be a top 12 guy? No, I think that with like guys like Josh Jacobs, even J.K. Dobbins, who I've got one spot ahead of him, it's like, or behind him, it's like these guys are just going to finish around here. They're going to be the safe, steady guys that they might not bring you a ton of upside, but with CEH, I at least feel comfortable with the offense that he's in. If he is the main guy in this backfield, that he will at least provide a solid floor each week. So that's why I've got him at 19. It's not necessarily something where I'm feeling extremely bullish on him. And like, this is where, he has the potential to rise even further than this as we get into the offseason. It's just one of the things where I'm looking at him saying, if Darrell Williams does move on, I think that he'll provide a safe floor week in and week out.
Now, we spoke with Andrew Erickson on the last show. We talked about wide receivers, the impact of what Trey Lance could do to the carry volume potentially of Deebo Samuel. What about Eli Mitchell? Is this ranking right now taking Trey Lance as the quarterback into account in your mind, that you have him where you have him at 21?
It is. There's a few things here for Elijah Mitchell being down at 21. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at that and be, a little shocked at that ranking because the workload was there for Elijah Mitchell. The talent is there. However, with Mitchell, we do have to take into account that Trey Lance is going to be the starter next year. He's going to take away rushing volume. Deebo Samuel is also going to continue to be utilized most likely as a running back out of the backfield here. He's going to take volume. And then with Mitchell, the third thing here is injuries. Like that is something that we do have to take into account when ranking Elijah Mitchell, is that he wasn't fully healthy. And part of my questioning here with Mitchell and the injuries is he dropped from 220, 230 pounds when he was playing in his final college season. Then he dropped to 200 pounds at the NFL Combine, ran that blazing 40-yard dash. So is that something where his body needed to play around the 220, 230 pound to be able to withstand those injuries? Or is this going to be a thing that is now kind of just sticking with him moving forward throughout his career because he's playing at a lighter weight? So that's something too to take into account. I'm trying to have the bigger picture in mind when I rank Elijah Mitchell here at 21.
Noticeably absent here from Yates' discussion and this late ranking is Rashad Penny, who Pat has at 22. I've got at 23. I can only assume Yates has him at 1 or 2 overall as we continue on, because I don't see him here yet. So we shall see as the show develops where that ends up landing. For me at 24, I've got David Montgomery just cracking through, barely over Clyde Edwards-Helaire and J.K. Dobbins, but I have a good feeling that if you talk to me in 2 months from now or by the summertime, that's going to flip-flop itself, and Montgomery will be behind those guys, and Carter and Dobbins will be ahead. I've got Rashad Penny at 23, as I said, Mitchell at 22, so Yates and I kind of see eye to eye there on Mitchell. A good player coming off a good season, but certainly some risk, and whenever an offense changes a quarterback, you know it's going to be a different dynamic. And you're investing in something you don't know yet, and that is always trickier than something that you know is proven and you understand what it is. I've got a little bit more respect here for Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to have a big season here with the Raiders bringing in Josh McDaniels as the new head coach there. Devin Singletary, I'm buying into the finish. I know some of us were talking about buying into finishes on the good or the bad side of things, but man, it looks like the Bills have figured it out there, and Singletary was a huge factor to them. In fact, he was getting 20-plus carries there almost every game towards the end. It was a huge win for me in the DFS market. Loved getting Singletary at a discount every single week, and I think next year it's actually safe to go look for a Bills running back. And if I'm going to get him as the 20th running back on the board, I think I actually feel pretty good about that, especially in that ecosystem, in that Buffalo Bills offense. It's going to put up a ton of points. And then James Conner's at 19. Again, this is kind of a tenuous one. I'm assuming he comes back. I'm assuming they like this relationship, but again, that's an assumption, so I'm not ready to completely buy in, but that's why these guys are 19 through 24. Pat, let's go to your next grouping here, 18 to 13. Starting at 18, you've got Michael Carter, then Eli Mitchell at 17. Saquon Barkley has fallen all the way to 16 for Pat Fitzmaurice, then J.K. Dobbins at 15, Antonio Gibson at 14, and David Montgomery at 13. So you're even higher than I am on Montgomery. Let's talk about that. I'm encouraged, too, that I think year 2 for Fields is going to be very good, and this offense is going to kind of find its way. So is that part of your thinking here with Montgomery, or is there something else here? Is it that you feel very confident that he's nearly cracking that RB1 territory for you?
Yeah, hopefully Yates is going to have my back on this one. So like, I don't want to discount, and maybe I did this a little too much with my 2021 preseason draft rankings. I don't want to discount just the benefit of built-in volume. And I think David Montgomery is a guy we can count on as probably a top 10 running back in terms of just pure touches. Yeah, we know this is probably not going to be a high functioning offense, so maybe the touchdown potential is somewhat limited, but Montgomery is a 3-down back. He can catch passes. He can run between the tackles. He can run outside. Like, I'm not discounting. Like, I feel like there's not that much difference between Najee Harris and David Montgomery. Like, I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of air between those guys in their rankings. And for me, you know, I don't see that much of a difference between the two of them. And it's possible that Montgomery is actually in the better offense next year and has the better quarterback.
Interesting point of view. Maybe not wrong either. Michael Carter at 18. So the Jets offense started to look a little bit more uniform here towards the end of the season. Seemed to be running with a little bit more confidence. Obviously, injuries really derailed them quite a bit. Not to mention a lot of green on that Jets team, no pun intended. But for Michael Carter, you know, what are your expectation right here? Right now you have him at 18. Is this kind of a solid lock-in number where you like him at this value? Or do you think this is a guy that could really outperform his ADP potentially?
I think he could outperform it. A guy who in weeks 1 through 11 was the RB20, I think, in half-point PPR fantasy scoring. And this was in an offense that, you know, was not performing at a high level, not scoring a lot of points, not scoring many touchdowns. And I know a little bit of that. I think that period covered the brief Mike White period with the Jets, where he was dumping the ball off to Carter like 15 times a game. Yeah, so I think this offense is going to improve. It sounds like they're dedicated to building up this offensive line. It would be great if they could get a fully healthy season out of Mekhi Becton and, you know, have Carter running behind that big guy. Boy, and a lot of it was just eye test. This guy looked good. He looked explosive. He looked nimble. He can definitely catch passes. So I think there is a lot of potential here. And yeah, to me, as just a versatile back. Again, we're talking about the discounts. Like, I know a lot of people are going to have DeAndre Swift ranked well ahead of Carter. And I think, again, like, similar skill sets, kind of similar ecosystems in some ways. and Carter's going to be heavily discounted relative to Swift.
Fair enough there. Let's talk a little about Saquon Barkley also, because I think this is one for me too that I know there's probably going to be a renewed vigor for Saquon Barkley theoretically out there in the fantasy community because, well, we brought in a new coach. It's Brian Daboll, good offensive mind. But are we really just continuing to spin our wheels here? Did Saquon Barkley really just kind of max out in college? And at this point, we're just not getting the athlete we saw in his youth at this stage? Or do you think one more trip around the sun here with a new coach is maybe the tonic he needs, especially when you couple that with a discount where you've got him at 16, I've got him at 17 personally, so we're kind of neck and neck there. What are your thoughts on Saquon Barkley heading into this year?
Yeah, I mean, and I would invite pushback from you guys if you disagree on this, but you kind of touched on it, Joe. Like, is he still the same special athlete we thought we were getting when we had Saquon Barkley coming out of Penn State and impressing us so much in his rookie year? Like, I don't know if he's still that guy after the injuries he's dealt with. And just the simple fact that we saw Devontae Booker look better than Saquon Barkley at points this season, that's kind of alarming.
Yeah, that's certainly alarming because I agree. The eye test was not good. I was not feeling the eye test there with Saquon Barkley. Now, I understand the Giants offense has lots of other problems, but we'll get to that probably in later shows as we continue on here, Fantasy Pros. Let's get to Yates grouping here. We'll start over at 18 to work our way up. We got Saquon Barkley at 18, Leonard Fournette at 17, Aaron Jones at 16, David Montgomery, Ezekiel Elliott shows up at 14, and then 13, Cam Akers. So, Yates, I'll ask you the same question about Barkley because I'd love to get your 2 cents because I think this is going to be one of the biggest kind of debate points is, are you in at Saquon Barkley now because you're getting that discount, or are you just better off starting to look at other guys, whether it be the Montgomerys, the J.K. Dobbins, the Michael Carters of the world, and just kind of moving on? So I want to take your temperature on Barkley. Where are you at right now with him in this rank?
It's so difficult because we can still see flashes from time to time of Saquon Barkley, but when you look at the offensive ecosystem around him, and now we have the offensive coordinator, we have the coaching change, all of that is gone. So there's a big part of it, but yet the offensive line is still abysmal. We have Daniel Jones, who just does not look the part of an NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. And with Saquon Barkley, part of the allure with him was his receiving ability. That was a big part of, from a fantasy perspective, especially, how he was able to be as dominant as he was in his rookie season 2018, I think. So as we look at Saquon, he doesn't have Eli Manning checking the ball down to him anymore. He doesn't. Daniel Jones is willing to push the ball deep downfield. He's not a check down guy. So with all that being taken into account with Saquon, does he have the potential with the coaching change? And if they make some investments in the offensive line, can it get right for him? Yeah, I think so. Can he return to a top 12 running back? Yeah, I do believe that. But when you take into account that we have these other running backs who have the potential to do that as well. You talked about Michael Carter. What happens if the New York Jets draft Ikem Ekwonu out of NC State, the offensive tackle at pick number 4, and they have Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton, and Ekwonu, who are just maulers in the run game? Like, that is just a star offensive line that Michael Carter would be running behind if Tevin Coleman's gone. Like, Carter has the potential to be a top 12 guy. Leonard Fournette, who's at 17, if they fix the quarterback position and it's not Kyle Trask next year, if they make, they go the veteran quarterback route and they make a splash, like, then we could see Fournette return to being a top 5 guy. So there's a lot of volatility in this section of rankings. And just with Saquon, there are so many questions. We had the situation this past year where it wasn't that he even provided a safe floor when he was on the field. If you put him into your starting lineup, he absolutely crushed you more often than not. And so we have to take that into account and say with Saquon Barkley, there are a lot of other guys that I feel a lot more confident. As of right now, yes, David Montgomery with the potential, with the new coaching staff, a competent offense. Justin Fields taking that year 2 leap. Then David Montgomery, scoring opportunities galore on top of his volume. Like, I will take David Montgomery over Saquon Barkley right now.
In my mind, Saquon Barkley was the most disappointing running back last year. And I know some people will say, well, what about Christian McCaffrey? He got hurt. And I was like, but Saquon Barkley actually played. He played a lot more, I think, than any of us really thought he would at the end of the day. He was on the field a good chunk, and even when he was on the field, it was just bad. I mean, I understand the Giants' offense had issues. I understand quarterback injuries. If what you're saying is true, too, and you believe that on the other side of town, the Jets can turn around and really beef up that offensive line yet again, I'm with you on Michael Carter. He does shoot up my rankings as well. But, that debate of these two New York running backs is a fascinating one. I want to ask you your thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott, too, because I know we got Pat's take, and I want to hear yours, too. These are the divining rods, I feel like, that everyone's going to be on one camp or the other. You know how I feel. I was very concerned about Zeke going into the season. Coming out of this season, do you buy back in thinking, well, the offense is going to be good, he just scores touchdowns too? That is still something that is valuable in a skill, and it's something they're going to still lean on him in 2022? Or are you terrified of maybe the guys like, David Montgomery, or even some of the other guys who are even lower on your list, maybe overtaking him potentially?
The divide in Ezekiel Elliott's rankings is going to come down to how do you analyze the fact that he played since week 4 of the NFL of this past season with a torn PCL. And so if you buy into that was the reason why we didn't see the major workload, we didn't see the same efficiency, we didn't see the same Ezekiel Elliott on the field, then I think that you're going to be comfortable not only ranking him here at 14, but potentially even higher than that. Because of the scoring opportunities, because it's still Ezekiel Elliott, he is still a talented running back, and he's in a good offense. There's the potential that he finishes again as, I think he finishes the RB6 this year. Like, there's the potential that if he stays healthy next year, he could be right back in that spot because of the touchdown scoring upside. If you believe that torn PCL really didn't hamper him all that much, and that wasn't the reason why his productivity was down and he just didn't pass the eye test, then you're going to have him down where Pat did. So I think it's going to be really interesting to get past this and get more into the offseason and try to unearth a little bit more information about this injury and to hear from Ezekiel Elliott. Like, was this the reason why, you weren't as explosive, or you weren't seeing as much workload? So there's a ton of question marks, certainly, but I am saying that a torn PCL, that's a big deal for a running back. And so, and it's also too that I've got him at 14. That's a high-end running back too, where I'm drafting him off the board. It's not like we're still drafting Ezekiel Elliott as a top 6 option, a top 8 option, right? That's a different conversation. So I think having him here at 14, I am perfectly comfortable with that price tag, buying into the fact that a torn PCL was the reason why Ezekiel Elliott was playing, wasn't as effective this past year, versus the age catching up with him, the workload catching up with him. Could be, but I'm just saying that's the narrative that I'm telling myself right now.
I'll take the other side of that, which is all the tread on the tires, the age, the amount of yards he's had, the years that he's been incredibly productive and gotten huge workloads. I think this is the beginning of the body breaking down. This is just one of many injuries I think you're going to see from Ezekiel Elliott, even if the PCL is okay. I think that Ezekiel Elliott, and it's funny because I've got him ranked higher than you guys, and maybe I need to go sit and reevaluate, but again, it's more of a default ranking of how I feel about some of the other guys in that middle, where I think it's a little bit of a risk or a little jump, and I think there's still safety in Ezekiel Elliott to a certain degree. I just don't love him as a first-round pick, and I didn't love him as a first-round pick last year, even though he ended up kind of returning that value at running back. We already got into that discussion, but I feel like this is the beginning of that stage of his career where it is going to be marred by injuries. There are other explosive backs in this backfield, like Tony Pollard, that you can hand the ball off to, and you have choices. So that's kind of where I struggle with Ezekiel Elliott, and I think that that's probably where I am with him going into the 2022 season. My grouping here from 18 to 13, I've got A.J. Dillon here. I'm very high on A.J. Dillon. I believe that whether it's Jordan Love or whatever it is, I love what I saw out of this guy last year, and I think if he does get the backfield to himself, that's going to be very exciting. Saquon Barkley's at 17 for me, then Aaron Jones at 16. As you can see, I've got them very close. I've got them close together like Pat did, but a little higher up because I just think I'm leaning towards Rodgers not being there and this being a really, really heavy run situation, even if both guys are there, and that could work. We've seen that work in the past. But again, nobody can be an RB1 if that's the case, probably most likely. I've got Damian Harris at 15, Cam Akers at 14, and Antonio Gibson at 13. I would love to feel better about Antonio Gibson. I just want to see, again, a healthy offseason for him, and I want to see what they do at the quarterback position before I anoint him and move him up my ranks at all. When we get to number 12, this is fascinating too, because we have 3 different guys here at 12. I've got Ezekiel Elliott at 12. Antonio Gibson Yates has at 12. And at 12, you've got DeAndre Swift, Pat. So, Pat, I want you to start with the number 12 guy as we go into RB1. This is a guy right on the border for you. So why is he on the border? Why did he make the cut here at RB1 for you at 12?
Well, I mean, so Swift, like as far as pure talent, he should be better than a back end RB1, I think. But in 26 NFL games, he's had more than 16 carries once. And now that we've seen,
we actually doubled that number with that
that
stupid game, like
game
35 carries,
Steelers.
right?
Exactly. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown emerging as a major pass catching force because a lot of Swift's value has come as a pass catcher so far in his NFL career. We're going to have TJ Hawkinson healthy again. And presumably the Lions are not done adding pass catching talent. I think they could still use some sort of premier outside receiver. So like, I don't know what the workload is going to look like. We know that the offense is probably not going to be a high achieving offense, a big touchdown source. So, you know, I like Swift a lot. I think people are going to have him ranked higher than 12, but for me, he's kind of a back end RB1 more so than like an RB8, an RB9 type.
All right, you've got Antonio Gibson at 12, who just made the cut, which is ironic because I've got him at 13, just behind Zeke, but everything in my being wanted to put him over Zeke. I just couldn't do it quite yet. I keep coming back to that same thing. I was like, well, how many scoring opportunities is he going to have? And Ezekiel Elliott, I still think he's going to have those problems, that we talked about, but the scoring opportunities are going to be there. I don't know how many times I saw this year, too, where Ezekiel Elliott was out there, around the 5-yard line and would get solo tackled by a defensive back. We never saw that in Ezekiel Elliott's career. That was basically, if you saw that one-on-one matchup, you knew that was a touchdown. So that has me a little worried, but I still can't get there yet. Sell me on Antonio Gibson, Yates, cracking this RB1 grouping because he's kind of been floating around there for us the last couple of years, but we thought he had the potential to do that. Why is 2022 going to be the year where he does?
Well, what's the truth about Antonio Gibson? Is it the first half usage where he was battling through that injury, or is it from weeks 10 through, on where he was getting he was averaging like 28 touches per game? Like, it was just stupid the amount of work that he was getting. So I think if we see that move into next year where he has that ridiculous workload, 12's way too low. Like with the talent level that Antonio Gibson has, 12 is way too low, and he could potentially be all the way up at 5. But then we have questions about the quarterback play and that holding back the offense and scoring opportunities, certainly. But then also J.D. McKissic. Is J.D. McKissic back next year, which could keep him onto the field in those third down situations because of how good J.D. McKissic is in pass protection. And that's something that Antonio Gibson, coming from his usage in college, just doesn't have that refined aspect to his game yet. So does he take leaps in the pass protection this offseason? And then we see Antonio Gibson dominate the snap opportunity. Like, that's a potential too. And if that is the case, then again, 12 is way too low. So I think 12 is really the floor for Antonio Gibson because of the workload that he's going to see. But he does have the potential to rise up even higher if what we saw at the end of the year, before the offense really just kind of like the wheels fell off the cart. Like, I think if we have that moving into next year, Antonio Gibson could be an absolute league winner. And he could be actually what we have been anticipating for the last 2 years.
I hope so, because I want to believe in it. I want to buy into it. And I think there's a good chance the longer we go here with these rankings that I will have Antonio Gibson probably overtake Ezekiel Elliott. But right now, I kind of know what Zeke is, even though I don't love it. I'm just accepting him, where I continue to go back to the same thing with Gibson is the injuries. You're right. You're 100% right. When he had that shin injury, he had the bye week. He had the little extra time there. Remember the way the schedule laid out there? Mm-hmm. So he had like a week and a half, basically. And man, like, he came back and he was the guy that we wanted him to be, but can he be it for a whole season? That's what I need to see. All right, let's take a look at the guys 11 to 6 now as we kind of crack RB1. Pat's got Najee Harris all the way down at 11. Javonte Williams at 10, Nick Chubb at 9, Alvin Kamara at 8, Joe Mixon at 7, and Cam Akers at 6. Now, you are the highest guy here on Cam Akers. He's put the ball on the ground a few times. We haven't had the Super Bowl yet. I think it's astounding what he's done. I think it's a credit to him. Here's the question. How do you get in your mind to him being RB6? Is it purely just the offense that you want a piece of, Pat? Or do you see something special in Akers too, where he can become a guy that challenges for that top 5 group?
The funny thing is, Joe, I think like other people are too high on Cam Akers. Sometimes I see some of the Cam Akers love on Twitter, and I'm just like, these people are way overboard on him. But what it comes down to for me is that throughout the season, even though we had different people playing the role, that RB1 role for the Rams was really, really valuable. We saw in weeks 1 to 8, Darrell Henderson was averaging like 17.3 yards per carry, and everyone was talking about how valuable Darrell Henderson had become. And then we kind of a squishy period in like from weeks 9 to 12 where the Rams went 0-3 and had their bye. And like there was kind of a weird transition almost where they were splitting the backfield between Henderson and Sony Michel, but then they turned it over to Michel in weeks 13 to 18, and he was averaging 21.8 carries a game over that period. And he was immensely valuable for fantasy. And then Akers comes in and they work him back with 13 snaps in their regular season finale in week 18. It's like, oh, maybe they're setting this up to be a split backfield with Sony and Akers in the playoffs. No. Then in the wild card round, we see 32 snaps and 17 carries for Akers. Then in the divisional round, 58 snaps, 27 touches against the Buccaneers. So like this is their RB1 going into next year. This guy's going to be their workhorse. He is a 3-down back. He's a pass catcher. Like we've seen them use him on like wheel routes and almost, I think it was in that wild card round where he almost hit a big play on a wheel route that would have made his day. Also had a couple of big runs called back. Like he could have just gone berserk in that wild card game against the Cardinals. Like I'm excited about the skill set, the versatility, and the usage in a really strong offense. You know, I think everything is pointed towards a, big volume season and a guy who just has the makeup of a true running back one.
Yates, you've got him, I think, where are we here? You've
13.
got him at 13. I've got him at 14 Cam Akers. It's a pretty good sell job there by Pat Fitzmaurice. What do you think? After listening to Pat, I'm sort of maybe changing my tune. Maybe I do have to bump him up a little bit. What do you think?
I think that I put him here at 13 and kind of have just left him here. And it's an oversight on my part where I put him there like at the wild card round. And then I just kind of left him there. And because I was like, I don't know what the workload's going to be. I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to have this be a committee backfield? And we got the answer just as beautifully as Pat laid it out. Like we've got the answer that Cam Akers is their guy whenever he is healthy. I still have some questions about, okay, if Darrell Henderson is fully healthy, do they work him in some form or fashion? But if we've got Sony Michel, who was just as productive, if not more, than Darrell Henderson, and he's not seeing a ton of work, then I can't believe that Cam Akers is suddenly going to succeed a lot of work to Darrell Henderson when he comes back. So Sony Michel, is he back in LA next year? Does he move on to, a place in free agency? Then that could open things up too. I get the allure. I get the allure with Cam Akers. I get that in this offense, which I predicted to be just a top 5 offense coming into the year, which is why I was in on Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and why I love Darrell Henderson because of the scoring opportunities. If that is all still there moving into next year, it could be even greater because they've got a year of chemistry underneath their belt. Then Cam Akers could be the RB1 next year. I don't think there's really any question about that.
And it's not a matter of talent with Akers. We've seen the big games from him. We saw it last weekend, obviously, and we've seen it in the past, too. A huge game a couple years ago against the Patriots, too. That was his coming out party for me. When he had that huge workload and he was catching the ball and he was blocking and he was doing everything you could possibly ask for, I was like, this guy's got it. He is going to be the thing. And unfortunately, injuries really have capped him in terms of his fantasy value. If he could just stay on the field, and I'll take it a step further. If there is a second back here, whether it's Henderson or somebody else, I don't think that's the worst thing, because I think what you want to do is manage him a little bit in the first 6 weeks of the season with that extra game that we play now. And of course, the Rams have playoff aspirations. I think what you want is Cam Akers really good for the last 10 weeks of the season. That's really kind of my take on that. So I don't think that should scare people off. But just understand that there's a chance that they're going to do that because history tells us Cam Akers has not been able to put up a full season yet. So why would you just all of a sudden not back it up with something? The Rams will have someone else there, but I wouldn't go crazy about that. That's a really good sell job there by you, Pat Fitzmaurice. Now defend yourself with Najee Harris at 11. That's what I want
really
to
quick
hear.
Before we move on from Cam Akers. Really quick. With Akers, this was that logic that you just spelled out is why exactly I was in on Darrell Henderson as a dynasty buy in the offseason, because I was like, he's going to see some work, because you can't give Cam Akers. There was a game in 2020 where he had like 28 carries, and it's like, you can't do that over the course of the entire season. So are they going to lighten the workload? Are they going to give Darrell Henderson some work? And this was kind of the thought process. And then saying like he has the upside if something were to happen to Cam Akers, God forbid. And then we saw it all happen. My question is, like, the logic is there to say, okay, moving into next year, you can't continue to give Cam Akers, 27 touches, 28 touches every single game over the course of 17 games. But they might do it. Like, logic is kind of out the window when we look at Sean McVay and his usage of Cam Akers, where it's like, it really doesn't matter, because if we get the workload for Cam Akers, we might have to take into account that he might not be able to play all 17 games. But it's the Dalvin Cook scenario. It's like Dalvin Cook, we know, is going to miss a couple of games. But if Cam Akers is going to miss a couple of games, but he's going to get the 28 touches per game, I don't care. I'll deal with those 2 games. I'll deal with that when it happens. I think logic says they can't continue to do this, but yet they continue to do it every time that Cam Akers is out there on the field.
It's a cheaper investment than Dalvin Cook, so I'll take that investment in Cam Akers any day if you're going to give me that, especially in any sort of salary cap draft for sure. I think that's a way better investment potentially for you. All right, you got a little bit extra time here now, Pat. Defend yourself about Najee Harris at 11. I want to hear this one. Yes. Get out of this one.
So, and, I should probably, maybe I'm contradicting what I said earlier about the guys when I was talking about David Montgomery and just the built-in volume and the willingness to work him into the ground. I mean, like, what do Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland and Kalen Ballage do during games? Do they just sit on the sidelines playing cards or something while Najee Harris gets like a 98% snap count? So mainly, I think the offensive ecosystem with the Steelers is going to be just hot garbage juice next year. That offensive line is a multi-year rebuild. I mean, we saw Najee Harris look so good this year, and he still averaged less than 4 yards a carry because the whole line was terrible. I mean, he was constantly like dodging guys in the backfield, and so much of his yardage came after contact.
Well, can they fix that a little bit with a more mobile quarterback? Can a guy with more elusiveness at least take a little bit of pressure off of that? I mean, Big Ben at this point in his career was not that guy.
Right.
So can that be helped a little bit by somebody who can move around the pocket just a little more?
Who's it going to be, though, Joe? I mean, they're talking about Mason
I guess
Rudolph.
Dwayne Haskins, but I don't know. I mean, that he fits that bill. But no, you're right. There's not a lot of options out there.
Tie this in with the current activities of the NFL offseason. The Senior Bowl, the current rumors out there are that the Steelers are absolutely in love with Malik Willis out of Liberty. So there is the potential that they move up in the draft. They're going to have to move up to get Malik Willis. Right. But if they do, then you're talking about mobility for days.
But we also know that Malik Willis is not ready for prime time and probably not a week 1 starter. And it's going to be, Mason Rudolph doing the, Horton hatches the egg and sitting on the egg for a few weeks until Malik Willis is ready. And man, I mean, that's just going to be such a low scoring offense. I think if we see a Mason Rudolph offense, the rebuilding of the offensive line, I'm just not excited about it. And as much as I do like the volume for Harris, the other thing is, like, this is not a guy who gets chunk plays. Like, he grinds it out. He needs the volume to produce. I mean, I think up until that regular season finale against the Browns, his longest run had been like 20 yards all season before he had that
up. Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, he had that 37-yard touchdown against the Browns, but it was just getting it 3 and 4 and 7 yards at a time for Najee. So yeah, I mean, I really like the guy. I love his versatility. I love that he is just a war horse and can carry the mail like 25 times a game and take a licking and keep on ticking. But that offense is just going to stink out loud next year.
Oh, good. I mean,
you had a lot of good sayings in that.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's
really good saying.
Dropping these hashtags all over the place, man. The juicy garbage or whatever the heck the first one was.
Hot garbage juice, Joe.
Hot garbage juice. Pardon me. Wow, he's ready. You're right, Pat. You did come prepared today for this one. All right, let's go to Yates's grouping here from 11 to 6. We've got Javonte Williams at 11, Nick Chubb at 10, Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, and Austin Eckler at 6. So let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. You've got him here at 9. I've got him at 10. So it looks like you and I are kind of backing off Christian McCaffrey a little bit compared to our colleague here, Pat Fitzmaurice. Spoiler alert, he's got him higher than we do. I still haven't seen Rashad Penny for the record either yet on Yates' list, which is very disconcerting. But talk to me about CMC. Tell me about why you landed here at 9 with him.
I think that, again, it's going into the logic with Cam Akers, the Dalvin Cook. Like, we are not at this point going to have Christian McCaffrey. It's unfortunate, but we're not going to have Christian McCaffrey healthy for all 17 games. And we just need to learn to accept that. However, even when he is on the field, he is still going to see the ridiculous workload that he has continued. Carolina is not going to back off of that workload, even though they're going to miss him in certain games. And so I think with Carolina too, part of the argument is, do they upgrade the quarterback position? Does David Tepper finally get tired of seeing Sam Darnold and Cam Newton and PJ Walker or Teddy Bridgewater, these guys out there on the field for Carolina, and say, we're going to go after Deshaun Watson this offseason. We are going to go after Russell Wilson, whatever it is, and we will send 3 first-round picks to do it. That's a very high potential of happening. And if that's the case, then not only do we have the workload for Christian McCaffrey, but we have the offense suddenly being very, very, very high powered. So all of it is still there. The upside is there for Christian McCaffrey. However, him being here at 9 is saying that I feel a little bit more confident with the durability of some of these other guys above him versus Christian McCaffrey, who we know is just not going to play all 17 games. And it's not like he's going to miss like 2 games like Dalvin Cook with a nagging injury here or there. Like, these are major injuries for Christian McCaffrey that are forcing him to miss significant time.
Number 7, Alvin Kamara is on your list here, and a lot of unknowns now. Unknowns at the quarterback position, unknown at the head coaching position here. Big turnover here for the Saints. Yet Alvin Kamara obviously is still a top 10 guy, certainly a top 5 talent. I think we all agree on that, but he's been in the league a few years now. So what's your approach with him this year? 7 seems about right. I've got him at 9, but I was curious your take there on your expectations for him this season.
He's going to be so interesting to monitor and watch what his ADP is throughout the offseason as we get into draft season. I have no idea how the public is going to value Alvin Kamara with the uncertainty, with the volatility at the quarterback position. Is it Taysom Hill next year? Is it Jameis Winston? Do they go into the draft and pick someone? Like, there are just so many question marks surrounding Alvin Kamara. But then as we look at all those question marks, we say, okay, well, it's still Alvin Kamara, and he is essentially one of the only proven options on this offense. And Michael Thomas, who knows what the heck is happening with Michael Thomas and if he's even there next year. So Alvin Kamara has to be the focal point of this offense next year. Like, he has to be. So the opportunity for him to see an increased workload is absolutely there moving into next year. And I think that that's kind of what is still keeping him here. It's like, we might not have the productivity, the efficiency might not be there, but the workload has to tick up because he's the only option on offense.
All right, let's get to my grouping here, 11 through 6. I got DeAndre Swift at 11. I think they're going to lean on him quite heavily this year. I'm hoping that this is the real breakout season here for Swift, and he really kind of announces his presence with authority. And a Lions team that I think showed you a lot of heart last year. They really did. They fought, and they competed every turn. No matter how bad the record was, they always showed up to play. I like that. What Dan Campbell's actually done there. McCaffrey's at 10 for me. I can't get there yet. Same thing with Kamara at 9. I'm just really worried about these guys. I'm worried about the workload they've had and how that's going to react in 2022 because of that. Then, of course, I'm the highest on Javonte Williams than anybody. I have him at 8. I am believer. That's right. I'm the Javonte Williams truther. I'm going to be here all year talking about Javonte Williams. So get ready, Broncos fans, because it's going to happen. I really don't care who's playing quarterback for them. I'd love to have an upgrade. I think we're going to get an upgrade. We shall see. There's not a lot of great quarterbacks out there, and they seem to be retiring all over the place, and the crop coming in is, I don't know about ready for prime time. But Javonte Williams showed me everything I needed to see last year, and I think this is a guy that is going to be the great value of the year at the running back position is Javonte Williams. I mean, I think it's actually a good thing that his first year in the league, he kind of did split the carries there with Melvin Gordon, but it was very clear in the second half of the year who the better running back was, and I think it's Javonte Williams, and I think this is just the beginning of a really good run here for him for the next 2 to 3 years. Then after that, I've got Nick Chubb at 7 and Dalvin Cook at 6. I'm the only guy that doesn't have Dalvin Cook in the top 5. I'm just sick and tired of Dalvin Cook missing games every year. I'm just sick of it, and I know I can draft Alexander Mattison. I get that, but I have had it. I'm over it. I love Dalvin Cook, love the talent. I was the biggest Dalvin Cook fan coming out of college into the league. I thought he was a great value in dynasty leagues that year when all these other running backs were getting talked up. But at the end of the day, you got to be on the field for me, especially when I need you most. And then when you're missing games and I'm moving to Madison, who is good at times, not so good at others, I just struggle there. Also, new coach, new situation there. We'll see how that's all shaking out. But Chubb seems to be that safe guy for all of us where we have him somewhere between 10 and 7. And we just go, yeah, Nick Chubb, he's good. He's good at football. Doesn't need to go further than that. Let's go to the top 5 guys here. Starting at Pat's 5, he's got Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry drops to 4, Dalvin Cook at 3, Christian McCaffrey at 2, Jonathan Taylor at 1. Now, spoiler, we all have Jonathan Taylor at 1. No surprises there. Christian McCaffrey at 2. How do you get here, Pat? I'm curious. After the last 2 seasons, why is the confidence still so high? You would put number 2 running back overall on Christian McCaffrey after, frankly, playing nearly that many games the last 2 years.
You two big Frady cats. I can't believe you're going to give me Christian
Frady
McCaffrey.
Cats, I want to win. I'll give him to you. You take him. But here's the thing. If you have to take him again at that cost, what does that do in terms of setting you back potentially if it's another disappointing season? Like, how many times do you have to get beat over the head with this?
Clearly, I'm not going to get him at that cost, Joe. I mean, I've got him at number 2. That's not necessarily where I'm going to take him. If I get him in the middle of the first round, or even, if there are other guys with the thinking that
you want to take him at
the
Yates'
turn.
ranking and my ranking. You love him that much, but you want to take him where we are. All right,
give him to me on the turn. That'd be fantastic. So, yeah, like we saw the upside, obviously. The RB3 season in 2018, the RB1 season in 2019. The last couple of years, it hasn't been pretty with the missed games, but I'm somewhat encouraged. It's been like thigh, ankle, shoulder. It's been nothing knee, no major knee injuries. That's good. He's still young. Like, he's still in the prime of his career. We know if he's on the field, he's going to produce. And I don't want to overfade the injury cases, because at least, and we talked about this with Saquon Barkley, the worst thing Barkley did was be healthy enough to play a lot of games in 2021 and give us the subpar production when he was actually healthy and in your lineup. Like, if a guy's going to be hurt, he's going to be hurt, and at least you're getting replacement value there. So that's why I maybe tend not to shy away from the injury cases as much at running back. I mean, the injury rates are so high at the position. I mean, you can't predict who's going to be a healthy track record, as we saw with Derrick Henry this year. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. Guys are healthy until they're not. So
fair. Yes, but in Derrick Henry's defense, he was healthy until he wasn't. Christian McCaffrey hasn't been healthy for 2 straight years. So I'm going to flip that around to you. Again, the justification of a ranking of 2 is a lot to ask, I think, for people to buy back in again.
And I'll concede, like, I do have a little bit of fear. I'm a fraidy cat myself when it comes to drafting. Kind of these undersized guys, the Christian McCaffreys, the Austin Ecklers, the undersized backs who, granted, their agility is one of their big appeals, their pass catching ability, what they can do in the open field. I just think we've seen, like, what you get from a Christian McCaffrey when he's healthy is so difference making that I am willing to embrace the risk to, get that in my lineup for hopefully more than 10 weeks of the season.
All right. Yates, you and I have a very similar top 5. You've got Najee Harris at 5. So do I. I've got Mixon at 4. You've got him at 3. You've got Jonathan Taylor at 1 and Derrick Henry at 2. I have the same. So pretty much the same grouping. You've got Dalvin Cook, though, at 4. So just to go through Yates's grouping here, 5 to 1, it's Harris, Cook, Mixon, Henry, Taylor. Mixon is up at 3 for you, and I figured he would be in that top 3 grouping, or at least top 5. So talk to me about Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals, who look like the offense of the future here.
Yeah, this is one of the cool things with Joe Mixon is obviously I was in on him this past year in draft season. I have him everywhere. And I think with Mixon, it was a lot of people wanted to label him as injury prone. And I pointed out that narrative. I don't need to go over that again, but being able to play the majority of the season, if not all the games, he was banged up that one week, remember? Yeah. But then he was still able to play, just didn't receive his normal workload. But with Mixon, now we have the guaranteed workload on the ground. Like, he's going to see more than 15 carries minimum. And then moving into next year, we look at this offense. This offense was still just kind of like getting things together, getting things figured out, right? You had Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow coming off the injury, and now we've seen that this offense is just dynamic. You've got every skill position locked up for the foreseeable future. Now all your resources, your available resources, go to the offensive line. So now we have these issues and concerns that we've had with Joe Mixon for so long, where injury, quarterback play with Andy Dalton, the offense sucks, the offensive line is terrible, he's not seeing a ton of work. Like, all these issues and concerns that we've had with Mixon over the course of his NFL career are now just being eliminated. They're just being checked off. They're just being eliminated here moving forward. So if we have the Bengals this offseason say, okay, we're an attractive free agent destination too. We've made the Super Bowl, and we've got a super young quarterback. This offense can only get better moving forward. So Joe Mixon, guaranteed workload. We know what it is. And then moving into next year, the offense is going to be even better. Yeah, sign me up for that as a top 5 running back. I will have him everywhere again in 2022.
There you have it. Those are our early running back rankings. The top 24 of Pat Fitzmaurice, Kyle Yates, and Joe Pisapia. If you want to check them out, make sure you head over to FantasyPros.com right now and go look at the 2022 draft ranks that are up already, because football never stops at Fantasy Pros. And of course, you can go pick your experts and dig in to see who's got who where. And of course, if you've got a difference of opinion there, you by all means go comment on our YouTube channel. Drop some comments. I can't believe this guy's got this guy there. That guy's crazy. You know, that kind of stuff. You love all that. So go ahead and do that. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and then go enter our contest at fantasypros.com/contest. We're giving away that Stephon Diggs autographed helmet thanks to our friends at pristineauction.com. And don't forget too about bettingpros.com/squares. If you got to get your square set up for the big game on Sunday, bettingpros.com/squares has you covered. It's easy. You create it. You send the link to everybody. You get the live updates. No bulky, weird markers that you got to put up there on a board somewhere. Everyone can just look at it on their phone. No poster board everywhere so people can say, well, what about this thing? Is this the number 3? What number is that? No. It's free. It's bettingpros.com/squares. It's the way to run your squares for this Super Bowl. So make sure you go check that out as well. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Pat Fitzmaurice and Kyle Yates, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.